There were just a few things promoted at the Oscars that I would like to help set straight. If you gave any credence to the show and watched it, you would think a few things about America's culture. 1, we have always discriminated against women. 2, we are always racist. And 3, we cannot help but sexually harass everyone. The only problem is, we do not have the problem, Hollywood does. And these problems weren't suddenly solved in 2016 with diversity quotas and being so woke after Trump was elected. Not to mention the current grandstanding is completely disrespectful to these true pioneers that forged their careers with grace and talent and not narcissistic complaining. But one thing is true, Hollywood really does have a sexual harassment problem and probably always will. But let's do some reality checks. I'm Ben Davies, this is Pure Hollywood. First, one of the main points that Jimmy Kimmel pushed was that we finally have a black superhero lead in Black Panther. We finally got it, he says. Well, he must have forgot all the dozens of cartoons and comic books that we won't even focus on, but let's talk about black superhero leads. The movie Blade was a Marvel superhero movie made in 1998. This was a smash hit and was greenlit by the studios before Spider-Man or X-Men. So popular even it made a trilogy. That's right, a black superhero lead making a trilogy series. And let's not forget about Hancock, starring Will Smith in 2008. This was actually a biracial love story as well. I bet there are people protesting in the streets. No, it was a $150 million production, grossing over $600 million worldwide. And let's not forget either about The Shaft and Steel, starring Shaq, which Steel actually wasn't that good of a movie, but the other ones are really good. Second, women are discriminated and put down everywhere, specifically when it comes to female directors. This was constantly pushed. Well, it's been my absolute pleasure to have worked with 2 different female directors, Brittany Goodwin and Jen Page. And keep in mind, they have been directors for years and been pushing the craft well before this was pushed at the Oscars. So if that's the case and they had careers long before we started pushing this, what men did they have to kill to become directors? The answer? None. They just decided to be directors. Oh, and for the Oscars itself, even though only 7% of movies made each year are done by women, there have been 4 women nominated for Best Picture, including the first nomination back in 1977, and Kathryn Bigelow winning for her work in The Hurt Locker. But let's look at the 7%. Why is there a more shallow pool to pull from when it comes to female directors and giving awards to movies? Let me ask you this. If you take a room of 100 girls who had not been indoctrinated by postmodern feminist parents and just simply ask them what they wanted to do you want to be a glamorous actress or a meticulous director working behind the camera and work at that craft your entire life? I would say about 9 out of 10 would raise their hand and want to be a glamorous actress. When you simply allow people to choose what they want to dedicate their entire life to be that good, they naturally section themselves off. And keep in mind that directing is one very meticulous small department of film. There have been many accomplished and incredible female writers that is one of the most lucratively paid parts of movie making. And you wouldn't see people complain about the lack of men in makeup design and costume design, just like you wouldn't complain about there being a lack of women working as grips on set. Even though there are plenty, of course, in all categories because different people decide to do different things. Also, the pay gap. This is absolutely stupid. There is a SAG minimum wage that everyone must abide by, and it is very, very generous. You can't pay people less if you're a woman because of the different SAG rates. However, you can negotiate giant contracts depending on how popular you are and how much revenue you can bring to the movie. For example, Julia Roberts was one of the highest paid people of all time and made tons of money in the 90s because she could negotiate incredible contracts. Jennifer Lawrence has also been a top paid actress in Hollywood for many, many years. This kind of thing goes in cycles. Currently, the past 10 years at least, 2 of the top paid people on TV have both been women. Mariska Hargitay of Law & Order and Ellen Pompeo of Grey's Anatomy. And we already covered the Mark Wahlberg thing they talked about. Yes, he just had a better contract than his co-star. But he was also the highest paid actor the entire year, and that kind of makes sense. But let's take a little history lesson because maybe this was only recently fixed in the past 2 years of political grandstanding. Do you know who the first actor was that was so popular they could demand any salary from the studio because the audience wanted this person so bad? It was probably a straight white male, you ask. No, it was Mary Pickford in 1918. 100 years ago when she famously and jokingly said, "I cannot work for less than $10,000 a week." But it's impossible. That's before third wave feminism and all these diversity quotas. Keep in mind, she was 25, so maybe she was a sexual icon and a symbol. No, if you look up any historical records on her, she was literally the girl next door that was just adored by people. She wasn't exploited for sexuality. And sorry, millennials, if you don't know this reference, but the most popular person in the past 100 years is by far Lucille Ball. Her show, I Love Lucy, being so popular that many offices would close down down when it was actually time for the show to start because no one would ever leave their house when I Love Lucy was on. And even though there's some debate about this next example of Rin Tin Tin, a German Shepherd, being the first Oscar winner in 1929 because they were forced to vote for a human, it is without doubt that he was the most popular person in Hollywood. A German Shepherd was the most profitable person and literally saved a studio because of how much the audience wanted to support and see this dog. It sounds like the country as a whole doesn't care about sex, gender, or even species. But what about the racial discrimination and I am an immigrant constantly being pushed at this year's Oscars? And that is the point. There are so many people, so many terrific artists and immigrants that have come to the United States and been performers in Hollywood that I couldn't even go through and list all the awards and movies that they've accomplished. The only thing that's ever been talked about in the media or anything is illegal immigration. Guess what? Guillermo del Toro, you came here legally. Good for you, man. Keep making awesome movies. And the highest grossing actor of all time is Samuel L. Jackson. Believe it or not, yes, and this was 30 years ago before all of a sudden we got so woke about diversity quotas. But that is not even the most infuriating narrative about the American people that there's trying to be pushed into the public. And that is that sexual harassment is so rampant and entrenched in our society that only Hollywood making a stand can stop it. Reality check. We didn't have a casting couch. You did. And guess what? The vast majority of Americans don't know people who are abusing women. Hollywood did, and then grandstands over people that had nothing to do with it and didn't take part in that horrible act. All this to say, these truly outstanding people weren't beloved, watched, and supported by Americans because the studio decided to make a push for diversity. Hollywood was forced to provide a platform to these people because of outstanding talent and drive, and because the American people wanted to watch and love them. The reality is that in general, if you are talented, everyday people will be captivated by you and do not care if you're a minority, a woman, or even a German Shepherd. I'm Ben Davies, this is Pure Hollywood. If you haven't done it already, you can now download the Rebel Media app. That way you have access to the entire Rebel lineup and can take it with you wherever you go.